You know that feeling when summer hits and the heat just seems to sap every ounce of energy from you? We often dismiss it as just, well, discomfort, right? But does extreme heat really affect our health, or is it just about feeling a bit sweaty? Today, we're taking a deep dive into exactly what the science says about heat's profound impact on our bodies. We've gathered your sources, the latest articles, cutting-edge research, your notes, and our mission is to unpack how heat genuinely messes with us. And, maybe more importantly, what practical steps we can actually take to manage it.
Well, the short answer is a resounding yes. Heat genuinely affects us, deeply. But as we'll explore, our bodies are actually remarkably equipped. We have these quite sophisticated adaptation mechanisms built right in. And here's where it gets really fascinating. You have a lot of power, to fine-tune those mechanisms through your daily choices.
Okay, so get ready for some surprising facts and practical insights that will help you not just survive, but maybe even truly thrive when the temperatures start to climb. Right, let's jump straight in then. Our sources make it pretty clear. It's definitely not just about feeling hot. Extreme heat actually makes us suffer on a deep physiological level.
That's absolutely right. Scientific studies, they vividly detail how multiple body systems are profoundly affected. Take the nervous system, for instance. There's an increased risk of cerebral infarcts, which are essentially heat-related strokes. Plus, you see a higher incidence and severity of migraine headaches. And for anyone dealing with conditions like dementia or multiple sclerosis, heat can significantly worsen their symptoms. It's a real burden.
Wow, when you mention things like strokes and migraines, it really hits home how vulnerable the brain is. Down to a specific mechanism or more of a general stress response?
It's a bit of both, really, but the primary mechanism often involves the cardiovascular system. Our sources highlight this as the system most affected. See, as temperatures rise, your body works much harder to cool itself, putting a real strain on the heart. This increases the risk of developing thrombi, those are blood clots, and it raises the likelihood of myocardial infarcts, heart attacks, and cardiac arrhythmias, too. Heat can even damage the delicate endothelium, that's the inner lining of your blood vessels. And on a more visible level, it can aggravate pre-existing skin conditions. Things like dermatitis, acne, psoriasis, they can all flare up.
It's quite a list of risks. It sounds pretty serious. But okay, here's where the story takes a bit of an empowering turn, right?
Yeah.
Our sources assure us our bodies aren't just like passive victims of the heat. We have these amazing built-in defenses we can actively support.
Precisely. Our body maintains an incredible fixed core temperature. It typically hovers around 36 to 37 degrees Celsius on average, and it only shows slight oscillations, maybe about half a degree Celsius. What's fascinating here is its remarkable stability, pretty much regardless of the external environment. Just imagine maintaining that internal temperature, whether you're in say, a dry 13 degrees Celsius room or a scorching 52-degree desert. It's amazing.
Maintaining that core temperature, especially with such huge differences outside, sounds like it must take a ton of energy. How does our body actually manage that stability? And is there a trade-off? Like, does it cost our bodies a lot to work that hard?
It does manage it through constantly balancing heat generation inside the body and heat exchange with the environment. Most of our internal heat is produced in the brain, the liver, the heart, and significantly in our skeletal muscles, especially during physical activity. Then, to shed excess heat when it's hot outside, our body needs to move that internal heat from the deep organs, mostly via the bloodstream, out to the skin. From the skin, it's released into the environment through several ways. There's radiation, just passive heat emission. Conduction, which is direct contact with cooler air or water, like when you take a cold shower, you feel that immediate cooling. Convection, the creation of tiny air currents on your skin. And crucially, evaporation. That's the cooling effect you get when sweat dries on your skin.
Ah, okay. And our skin plays a surprisingly active role in this, doesn't it? You mentioned it earlier, almost like a living radiator.
It absolutely does. Your skin has this, exquisite system of adjustment through its blood vessels. When you're hot, the blood vessels in your skin dilate. That's called vasodilation. This floods the skin with more blood, allowing for faster heat exchange with the environment. That's why we often look flushed or red when we're hot. Conversely, when it's cold, those vessels constrict vasoconstriction. That reduces blood flow to the skin and minimizes heat loss. Think cold, white hands and feet. And this whole process is orchestrated by the hypothalamus in your brain. It's constantly monitoring your temperature, incredibly sensitive to tiny changes.
So the brain is like the master control panel, constantly checking and adjusting blood flow to the skin to keep everything balanced.
Exactly. And this brings us to the absolutely critical role of sweating. Here's the thing. When the ambient temperature outside is higher than your body temperature, mechanisms like radiation and conduction actually start working against you. They make you absorb heat from the environment. In that scenario, sweating, and specifically the evaporation of that sweat from your skin, becomes the only remaining effective way for your body to cool itself down.
That's a really important point. So if sweat doesn't evaporate, maybe because it's too humid or you're wearing the wrong clothes, it's essentially useless for cooling.
Pretty much useless, yes. That's why humidity feels so oppressive. It prevents efficient evaporation. And this highlights why anything that stops effective evaporation, like non-breathable clothing, very high humidity, or even though rarely, certain congenital issues with sweat glands can lead to a dangerous rise in internal body temperature.
Okay, got it. So sweat needs to evaporate.
And your sweat glands themselves are incredibly smart. They have a deep coiled part that produces the initial sweat and then a tubular duct part. As the sweat travels up this duct towards the skin, the duct actually reabsorbs vital water and electrolytes like sodium and chlorine before the sweat reaches the surface. Now, how much gets reabsorbed depends on how fast the sweat is flowing.
Ah, so it's not just about producing sweat, but also about how efficiently we kind of recycle the good stuff from it.
Exactly. And this leads to acclimatization. People who are acclimatized to heat, they actually tend to sweat more overall, but their bodies are much better at reabsorbing those electrolytes. So their sweat is more dilute, they lose less salt. Less adapted individuals, on the other hand, might sweat less effectively. And because their reabsorption mechanism hasn't fully kicked in hormonally, they lose more water and electrolytes with the sweat they do produce. This is why when a heat wave first hits, or maybe you travel somewhere much hotter, it's so crucial to hydrate more and also to consciously add mineral salts to your drinks or food. That example I mentioned, adding a small portion of clean seawater to your drinking water, is one way to do that. It provides a good spectrum of minerals.
Okay, knowing all this about our body's amazing design, its internal thermostat and cooling systems, the big question becomes, how do we actually leverage these natural abilities? Fortunately, our sources point to three core areas where, simple daily shifts can make a massive difference.
That's right. We can actively work to improve vasodilation, helping those blood vessels open up. We can enhance sweating efficiency. And we can reduce our internal heat production. Starting with diet, the main goal is pretty straightforward. Minimize the internal heat that naturally comes from digesting food. The thermic effect of food, it's called. This generally means opting for smaller, lighter portions and choosing foods that require less digestive effort overall.
Okay, smaller portions, lighter foods. What kind of specific food should we be thinking about to help us stay cool?
You want to focus on cooling and hydrating foods. Think lots of vegetables and fruits, lean proteins like poultry, small to medium-sized fish are good choices too. And seeds and nuts, but ideally pre-toasted or hydrated, which makes them a bit easier on digestion. Summer is obviously the perfect time for abundant fruit. Think of fruits as your body's natural cooling system. Watermelon, for example, is fantastic. It's not just delicious, its high water content combined with compounds that actually boost blood vessel dilation makes it a kind of dual action hero for hydration and shedding heat. Definitely prioritize seasonal, high water content produce. Things like melon, pears, apples, cherries, berries, raspberries, strawberries, citrus fruits like lemon, lime, grapefruit, orange, peaches, nectarines, and tropical fruits are great too. Papaya, mango, they're excellent choices.
I love that idea of fruit as a natural cooling system. Do you have any specific tips on the best way to incorporate them into our day?
Absolutely. Our sources suggest that fruit is often best consumed as a snack, maybe mid-morning, rather than right after a big meal as a heavy dessert. Though pineapple and papaya are exceptions there, as they contain enzymes that can actually aid digestion, you can get creative. Try making fruit skewers with maybe 3 different seasonal fruits cut into cubes. Or simply some melon cubes with a squeeze of fresh lemon juice over them. Simple, refreshing. For cooking methods in general, opt for light preparations or even raw foods when possible. Salads are generally better consumed at midday rather than late at night. Think maybe a sweet potato salad with a light vinaigrette, cooked artichokes, or simple boiled leek and carrot salads. Mediterranean escalivada, that roasted vegetable dish, is great, or rehydrated seaweed salads are surprisingly easy and cooling. And don't forget cool soups, cold creams like gazpacho or vichyssoas are perfect. Otherwise, stick to light methods like blanching, steaming, or maybe grilling quickly. Anything that minimizes the internal heat your body has to generate during digestion.
Makes sense. And you mentioned vasodilation earlier. Are there specific foods that really help our bodies open up those blood vessels to release heat?
Yes, Absolutely. You're looking for foods that help promote the formation of nitric oxide in the body. Nitric oxide is a molecule that naturally helps relax and dilate blood vessels. This directly helps transfer heat from your body's core out to your skin, helping you cool down more efficiently. Great examples include, again, watermelon. Citrus fruits like lemon, lime, grapefruit are good. Walnuts, various seeds, beetroot or beet, and leafy greens like spinach, arugula, kale, they all help.
Okay, great list. What about hydration? We know it's key, but any specifics beyond just drinking water?
Yes, hydration is paramount, but we can be smart about it. Aim for at least 2 liters of fluid daily, ideally water that contains some mineral salts. Just adding the juice of half a lemon or lime to your water can be beneficial, adding some electrolytes and flavor. Smoothies and fresh juices are also good ways to rehydrate and replenish minerals. Even infusions, coffee, and tea contribute to your overall fluid intake. And remember, they don't always need to be hot in summer. Cooler versions can actually help reduce your internal body temperature a bit. It's also important to use complete salt, like unrefined sea salt, in your meals, and maybe even a pinch in drinks, as it provides a broader range of minerals than just sodium chloride. And consider a mineral supplement if you feel you need it, especially when you're not yet fully adapted to the heat or sweating a lot. Remember that idea of adding a tiny bit of clean seawater to your drinking water? That's a very practical way to get those vital minerals back in.
Right. Good practical tips there. Now, what about exercise when it's really hot? Should we just, skip it altogether, or are there safe ways to keep training?
You definitely don't have to avoid it entirely, but intelligent adjustments are absolutely crucial. Safety first. It's best to train in controlled, air-conditioned environments if possible, like a gym. Or if you're exercising outdoors, you really need to reserve those workouts for the coolest times of day. That means ideally early morning or late evening, avoiding that midday sun and heat. During exercise itself, hydration is key. Drink water consistently in small sips. Now, if your training session is under an hour and you're already pretty well adapted to the heat, plain mineral water is usually sufficient. However, for longer sessions, or if you're exercising in very hot conditions, or if you know you're not yet heat adapted, then mineral salt replenishment becomes absolutely necessary. You can achieve this with maybe a pinch of full sea salt in your water, again, that seawater addition, or by using a balanced multi-mineral supplement designed for athletes.
Okay, diet and exercise adjustments make sense. But you also mentioned lifestyle. It sounds like it goes beyond just food and workouts. This is where it gets truly holistic, impacting how you live your entire day.
Exactly. Lifestyle adjustments are incredibly crucial and often overlooked. Fundamentally, try to slow down your pace of life as much as possible during intense heat. Avoid rushing. Make your physical movement softer, more paused. This consciously reduces the internal heat generated just by muscle activity. Think calm, deliberate actions. And perhaps most profoundly, be very mindful of your daily schedules and routines. Try to align them as closely as possible with your natural biological clock. This is about chronoregulation.
Chronoregulation.
Yeah.
Okay, maintaining our body's natural rhythms. How does optimizing that actually connect to surviving and thriving in the heat specifically?
It's a fantastic question, and here's a truly, perhaps surprising insight from the research. Optimizing your body's natural rhythms, your chronoregulation, doesn't just improve sleep or general well-being, though it does that too. It directly enhances your body's resilience to heat stress. It does this by strengthening the very same physiological systems that heat otherwise damages. Research clearly shows that an alteration of these natural rhythms, something called chronodisruption, can lead to higher rates of metabolic disease, cardiovascular damage, dementia, and other neurodegenerative diseases. Now, what's really important here is that these conditions, metabolic issues, cardiovascular problems, brain health, are precisely the same target points where heat can have its most negative effects on your health. So by optimizing your chronoregulation, you're essentially building a stronger, more resilient body overall, better equipped to handle stresses like heat. Practical tips. Things like getting natural light exposure soon after waking, maybe delaying breakfast slightly rather than eating immediately, avoiding heavy dinners late at night, definitely not eating in the middle of the night. And a big one, avoiding screens and that blue light from electronic devices for at least 2 hours before you plan to sleep. It really helps regulate your melatonin production.
Wow, okay. What a deep dive that was. It's genuinely incredible how much our bodies are doing constantly behind the scenes just to keep us comfortable and healthy, especially in the heat. And maybe even more incredible is how much influence we have, how much influence you have over these processes through fairly simple choices.
Indeed. I think the summary is quite clear. Heat affects us not just in terms of comfort. It directly impacts our health across multiple systems. Yet we are equipped with these remarkable adaptive systems. And the really good news is that we can significantly support and enhance them through conscious daily choices. Choices in our diet, our exercise habits, and our overall lifestyle, including respecting those internal rhythms. Doing this really does reduce heat's negative impact on our well-being.
So next time you feel the mercury rising, remember these powerful insights. You're not just passively enduring the heat, you're actively engaging your body's incredible adaptive powers. And here's something for you to ponder as you go about your day. How might a deeper understanding of our body's internal rhythms, beyond just temperature regulation, empower us to adapt to any environmental challenge the future might hold?